Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. And today it's the Lost Mine of Phandelver Dungeon Master Guide. Now for those of you who are players and are playing in the game and not a Dungeon Master, this is the time for you to go and watch one of my other videos and not this video. Because today this is a Dungeon Master video. So once you've played through it, by all means, but I have hundreds of videos you're welcome to go and check out if you are a player. Now if you are a Dungeon Master, you are in the right place because we're going to talk about, as it happens, Harbin. Harbin is the elected Townmaster for this year in Phandelver. Currently he's got the job, and if you turn to page 18 of the Lost Mine of Phandelver, most of the information regarding Harbin is situated right there. Now it looks like a lot of information, but in fact it's very little. So that means I have to use my brain, read between the lines and create a few things for you so you have something to play with or use. Otherwise you've got to come up with that information yourself. Currently, Phandelver doesn't have a full functioning elected government. There's no full government in Phandelver whatsoever. There's just Harbin. That's it. He's not like the sheriff. He's not a constable. He is just an elected town individual who essentially serves the purpose of being the judge and dealing with minor disputes, keeping financial records and birth and death records, the sorts of things that some sort of person involved in being a town master would have to do in Phandelver. That is his role. So he's a paper pusher. That's really all he does, nothing else. The town master doesn't have the money or the support or even any kind of law enforcement whatsoever. There's no constable, there's no sheriff, there are no deputies that have been appointed to him to help enforce the law currently. So his hands are really tied when it comes to doing anything in Phandelver. There's not an awful lot the individual can do if you don't have law enforcement of some kind. Now that the red brands have moved into town, he's got really no way of dealing with the issue whatsoever because he's still waiting for help. He's still waiting for the Lord's Alliance to send him some assistance, which in fact he's still waiting, and he's been waiting some time. There is an individual who is on their way who is supposed to help him out. That's Sildar Hallwinter. I've done a video on that particular individual if you're interested. Now, Harbin is a male human banker with only a theoretical experience or knowledge of law, and that's law with regard to Neverwinter and Watersdeep. That's really it. The rest of his experience and skills is practical in account keeping for a bank, and in the past he's had his own bank, he's run his own bank, and given enough time he certainly would like to run his own bank here in Phandelver, but things have not gone well so far. He took the job because no one else really wanted the job, and thought it might give him a wider appeal so that he could open a bank in Phandelver and then of course sort of rake in the money because he would be the only bank in that location holding everybody's funds. Well, it didn't work that way, did it? Access to the town funds has been a joke, and he's regretted the appointment to this location, something he didn't think he would wind up finding himself in such a bad situation, but he has. The red brands are outside of his league. He really can't deal with them at all. He's fat, he overeats often. This is usually stress eating. Also the fact that he's wealthy, so it's not like he has to worry about feeding himself. So he tends to eat, one, because he is wealthy and he has access to pretty much anything he wants, but also it's around stress. In the past, when you work in a banking environment, although you get a lot of money, it's very stressful, and so that's sort of part and parcel of his nature. He's quite pompous. The old fool hasn't accepted that he is out of his depth and has chosen to ignore the townsfolk who disdain him because of his lack of action and acceptance of the situation being untenable in Phandelver. As a result, everybody in town hates him with a vengeance. Really, they do not like him at all. Harbin Wester is afraid of the red brands and really has been playing down the protection racket they are running in Phandelver. So far, he's sort of referred to them as being a mercenary guild and described them as basically not really being too much trouble, that they're just around. It's not really something that people need to concern themselves with. That's in fact incorrect, but that's the message he tells everybody else and the message he tells himself. At this present time, his own funds have not been affected by the red brand, so everybody else is paying protection money, but he himself is not paying any protection money. So if as long as that's the case, he's really not going to make too much noise. The Townmaster Hall is very small and it has a jail cell in the cellar. There are 2 cells. Harbin Wester carries the jail door keys, but he's never actually used them. In fact, he very rarely goes down into the cellar, seeing that as sort of outside of the scope of his job. Of course, he was given the cell keys for a reason, but of course when people assigned him and allowed him to be appointed as the Townmaster, they thought they were getting a Townmaster who would deal with the books, deal with any issues and disputes, and also act as a constable or a sheriff of some kind. But that's not something he's capable of doing. He is desperately waiting for Sildar Hallwinter, an old Griffin rider, to show up and sort out all of the problems that are starting to develop. And there are more and more problems occurring in Phandelver, which are completely out of the scope of Harbin Wester. His ideal is to make money, and as much money as possible, and he'd also desire to sort of line his own pockets. But there's really no significant money floating through Phandelver right now. Even though it's a new and up-and-coming growing town, it's not really the jewel that he was hoping for. Harbin Wester doesn't have an awful lot to do with the Gundren Rockseeker or the Gundren brothers, but when the dwarves showed up, he had hoped that Gundren Rockseeker and his brothers would be able to improve trade, and because they were dwarves, he figured that they would open up some sort of mine, and that there would be the transport of rare ore, gems or metals that would help boost trade, and also that would be a perfect time to open a bank to store all of their wealth that would be flowing out of this mine. It hasn't happened, and unfortunately he's had to adjust his plans to that, which is really he has no plans whatsoever. He just sits there hoping for his appointment time to turn over. Once the year is out, he will hopefully be able to just drift off, or he can hold out long enough till the Lord's Alliance can send Sildar Hallwinter or some assistance to deal with all the many problems that he's had to contend with outside of his own scope. There is only money to pay for the removal of the orcs that are raiding along the Tribord Trail. So some of the quests that the players can get, or their characters can get, is to deal with the orc problem or troubles along the Tribord Trail. Currently there is 100 gold pieces as an offer, and he's not going to offer any more. He's not into bargaining. When it comes to money, he's sort of right, this is what I'm paying, this is what you take. He's not really going to negotiate, and really he doesn't care in the slightest if the orcs cause more problems anyway, but the offer is out there because the townsfolk have asked for this particular issue to be dealt with, and money has been afforded him to do this. So he can't sort of, because they know exactly how much money has been put into the pot for this, he can't siphon off anything, and therefore he'll have to offer what the townsfolk have said, this is what we're going to put forward. Money has come from about 10 to 12 different locations. Most of them are actually owners of businesses in Phandelver currently. Now, if they start asking him questions about Cragmore Castle and where it might be located, it's a mystery to him. He's got no idea. He's going to leave that sort of issue to Sildar Hallwinter if Sildar Hallwinter does make it back to Phandelver. And if the players have any questions, they need to refer all of their questions to Sildar Hallwinter, because as far as Harbin Wester is concerned, that's outside of his scope. they're dealing with the orcs by paying somebody off to go and dispose of them. But when it comes to things like goblins, hobgoblins, bugbears, and any other threats, and even the red brands, there isn't any money to deal with them, and he doesn't really know enough about it. He spends most of his time sort of locked behind doors, keeping to himself. When they start asking questions about the red brand's leader and Glassstaff, well, Glassstaff is somebody that Harbin Wester doesn't talk about. One, because he feels like if he talks about Glassstaff too much, the red brands might target him, and then he's going to wind up losing money in the form of protection money having to be paid. He can, under closed doors, essentially only tell the players' characters that the leader of the red brands is Glassstaff, and he knows no more than that. He knows really nothing about Iano Albric. In fact, most of that information will have to be collected by individuals within town, because Iano never went and saw Harbin Wester. So they have never had any contact, and he was completely unaware that Iano Albric actually showed up in Phandalin at all. So not an individual you can actually get information out of. What you might find in terms of combat is that Harbin Wester is not a fighter. He's never going to get into a fight. He's going to beg for mercy, and he's probably going to try and run away if that doesn't work. He's absolutely useless if you want any kind of information. If you're looking for information, not really the individual you want to talk to. Now, when it comes to a character like this is really very much your stereotypical sort of Townmaster who has only themselves to sort of deal with the situation. So his response makes a lot of sense, given that it's outside of his scope, that it's outside of his experience level, and that he does not have the resources. So when you start playing this character, try to remember that he's playing it, you're playing the character as if it's an individual who really is just a banker who wound up biting off more than he could chew, and certainly if somebody can deal with the situation and get him out of this pickle, he would be quite happy. Now, if you have any questions, by all means, you go for it. Ask questions. If you want to check out some of my other videos, and I have hundreds of them for players and dungeon masters, as it happens, I have a huge playlist for the Lost Mine of Phandelver, which is covering just about every single NPC and location within the adventure. And if you are looking for information on the Lost Mine of Phandelver as a dungeon master and how to play through that adventure, you will find something. I believe the playlist is called Lost Mine of Phandelver Dungeon Master Guide, and you're welcome to go and check that out. Now, if you want to support the channel so I keep doing videos like this, I have a Patreon page where people can request videos. They get access to all of the live streams and all the Q&A at the end, which go unlisted normally. You also get access to a few special things that nobody else gets access to. I have a affiliate link down in the description where you can buy stuff online from Amazon and the book depository, and I get a small commission, which is always nice. I also have a merchandise shelf, which I have adjusted prices for, so you should find them reasonable, and if there's anything that appeals to you, great, go for it, check it out. Now, make sure to share, like, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to be notified when I go live and when I publish new videos, and I do that quite a lot. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.